All right. Welcome back, everybody, for episode 10 of the Work and Play Podcast Unlocked.
Wow.
It's really cool to see so many of you sticking with us since episode 1.
Yeah, it's really encouraging.
So for this episode, we're going to do something a little bit different.
Okay, like different.
We are going to be taking a deep dive into a solo podcast episode.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's from the Work and Play Podcast, hosted by Arylle.
Okay.
And the episode is titled, How to Be Consistent.
I like it already.
Yeah.
Sounds very practical.
And we're hoping that by looking at this solo episode, we can glean some insight into how solo podcasters can keep their audiences engaged.
Right, because that's like the main challenge, isn't it? When it's just you, you've got to really keep people hooked.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does she do it?
Well, one of the things that really stuck out to me was her use of personal anecdotes.
Okay, I love a good story. So what kind of stories does she tell?
Well, for example, when she's talking about consistency, she brings up her own struggles with sticking to her Pilates routine.
Oh, so relatable.
Wow,
I
yeah.
think we've all been there.
Yeah, like those days when you just don't feel like working out,
Exactly.
but she still makes herself do it. And I think by sharing that, it makes her seem more human, you know?
Definitely.
Like she's not some superhuman who's always perfectly consistent.
It makes her advice feel more attainable, too,
Exactly.
because it shows that she understands the challenges.
Right. And she's not just preaching from some ivory tower.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's perfect, right?
No.
We all have those days.
For sure.
But it's about pushing through, I guess.
Yeah. And finding strategies that work for you.
Okay, so she uses personal anecdotes.
Right.
What else?
Well, another thing she does really well is align her content with the specific needs of her audience.
Okay, that makes sense.
So her audience is primarily entrepreneurs and people who are interested in personal growth. And so she focuses on topics that are relevant to their lives.
Like what?
Well, in this episode, she talks about things like perfectionism, planning, and goal prioritization.
Ah, classic entrepreneurial struggles.
Right.
Yeah, I can see how that would resonate.
And I think that's a key takeaway for any solo podcaster, really understanding your audience and what they're struggling with.
Yeah, because if you're not speaking directly to their needs, they're going to tune out.
Exactly.
So you got to give them what they want.
Right. It's all about providing value.
Okay, so she tells personal stories. She aligns with her audience. Anything else?
I did think that the episode could have benefited from a more explicit call to action.
Interesting.
Like, she does encourage listeners to apply the strategies that she talks about.
Right.
But I think it could have been even more effective if she had given them a specific next step,
Oh, I see.
like maybe a prompt to subscribe to her podcast or join her online community.
Yeah.
Or even just download a worksheet or checklist related to the episode.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that would have given listeners something tangible that they could take away from the episode.
Totally. It would make it more actionable.
Exactly.
Because sometimes you listen to a podcast and you're like, okay, that was great, but now what?
Right, exactly.
So having that clear next step can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
And it can also help to drive engagement.
Oh, for sure.
Like if you give people something to do, they're more likely to stick around
Right.
and become part of your community.
So overall, I think Aryll's episode is a great example of how to create engaging solo podcast content.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would definitely recommend checking out the full episode.
Yes, definitely.
It's called How to Be Consistent.
Okay, we'll put a link in the show notes.
And as you're listening, I want you to think about this. What are some personal stories that you could share to connect with your audience?
Good question.
And how could you tailor your content to address their specific needs and challenges?
Those are some great things to consider.
Yeah, I think they're really key for any solo podcaster who wants to build a loyal following.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, well, that's all for today's deep dive.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Bye.